Borg could do on a tennis court was more than precocious talent. It was pure genius, seen before, and changed the way tennis was played forever.
Would you believe me if I told you that one of the greatest rivalries to ever happen in men's tennis, with 14 matches, happened in the span of only 3 years? I was as surprised as you are right now when I found out that Bjorn Borg and John McEnroe, two of the best tennis players ever, and certainly two referents of their era, only shared that little time on tour, and still managed to build a rivalry that is still remembered to this day. Bjorn Borg, on the one hand, was born in 1956 and turned professional in 1973, at the age of 17. McEnroe, on the other hand, is almost 3 years younger. He was born in 1959 and turned professional in 1978 at the age of 18. Before McEnroe entered the professional tour, Borg was already a star. He had 6 Grand Slam titles to his name, 3 of which he had won at Roland Garros, 1974, 1975, 1978, and the other 3 at Wimbledon, 1976, 1977, 1978. In addition to that, he had already been crowned a year-end championships winner in 1976 and had achieved glory with his country, winning the Davis Cup in 1975. From the moment McEnroe became a top professional player, seeing him in the final stages of big tournaments became normal, and him facing Borg slowly turned into a matchup that nobody wanted to miss. Their first meeting happened in November 1978 at Borg's home. It was at the Stockholm Open semifinals that 19-year-old McEnroe had the opportunity to play the Swede living legend for the first time in his career. By that time, McEnroe had already won 3 titles that season, in Hartford, Tokyo, and Wembley. These were the first 3 of his career, and the 4th one would come in no other place than Stockholm. In their first meeting, McEnroe beat Borg in straight sets by 6-3, 6-4, stunning the home favorite. Later, he went on to beat Tim Gullikson by 6-2, 6-2 to lift the title. There were no other Borg-McEnroe matches until the following season, 1979, when they met for the first time in February. Once again, it was in the semifinal stage, but this time, it was on McEnroe's home soil. They were playing the Richmond World Championship Tennis, which was the professional men's tennis tour back in that time. Like it happened in Sweden, the away player won, this time being Borg, who beat Johnny Mack in a tight 3-setter with a score of 4-6, 7-6, 6-3. Unlike the previous time, it wouldn't be too long until there was a new chapter of this rivalry in the making. In fact, the following week, Borg and McEnroe met once again in the semifinals of a WCT tournament in New Orleans. It was another very tight 3-setter, which went the Americans' way in a 3rd set tiebreak. 5-7, 6-1, 7-6 was the score. Crazily, there would be a match between these two for a 3rd week in a row in Rotterdam for the Rotterdam WCT. Unlike their previous 3 meetings where they had played in the semifinals, this time they met in the final. This would be the first of many finals to be disputed between these two as part of their rivalry. Borg won easily, 6-2, 6-4, winning his maiden title in Rotterdam, the 49th of his career, and leveling the head-to-head against McEnroe at 2 wins all. Since they played their first final against each other, they would rarely meet in other stages besides finals. The following match they played was indeed another final, at the WCT Finals, held in the month of May in Dallas. It was a best-of-5 sets match, which McEnroe won in 4, 7-5, 4-6, 6-2, 7-6. The last time these two would play during that year was in Toronto for the title once more. That time out, Borg beat McEnroe in straight sets 6-3, 6-3. However, even though it may sound weird, that was not the last time the two played in that season. Back then, the Masters was played in January. Therefore, in January 1980, as part of the 1979 season, the pair played in the semifinals of the 1979 Masters. The tournament was played in New York, and incredibly, Borg managed to take the win after a very tight 3-set match. 6-7, 6-3, 7-6 was the score in favor of the Swede. Just like that, at the end of the 1979 season, the head-to-head was 4-3 in favor of Bjorn Borg. But as you can see, it was an incredibly even rivalry. This was mainly because of the contrast in their game styles. Borg was a very solid baseline player, with impressive footwork and an enviable physical condition. Besides that, he possessed an incredibly tough mentality. He carried himself on court very passively, earning the nickname of the Iceman. Instead, McEnroe was more of a flashy player, who played very aggressive tennis. He served and volleyed and was very creative with his shots. Definitely a very talented guy. Mentally, he was completely opposite to Borg. His mind was all over the place more often than not, but he still managed to keep concentration. His fiery temperament and on-court antics often unsettled his opponents, making him a very tricky player to face. 1980 was the year these two finally played their first Grand Slam match against each other, And what better way to do it than in a final, right? It was at Wimbledon, one of Borg's favorite tournaments, where he had won the title the previous 4 years. This match happened to be one of the most iconic of their rivalry, and was considered by many as one of the greatest matches of all time. It featured an epic 4th-set tiebreak, which McEnroe won by 18-16, but that was not enough to win the title. Borg ended up taking the 5th set in dramatic fashion, winning by 1-6, 7-5, 6-3, 6-7, 8-6, and lifting his 5th consecutive Wimbledon title. McEnroe's first title at the All England would have to wait. Just 2 months after that memorable match came their second Grand Slam encounter in yet another final at the US Open. This happened to be another incredible match, which also went to a deciding 5th set. That time, McEnroe came out victorious, winning by 7-6, 6-1, 6-7, 5-7, 6-4 to defend his title from the previous year. This was his second Grand Slam title. Even though it might sound weird, these 2 Grand Slam finals and the way they panned out say a lot about the 2 players and their rivalry. Bjorn Borg, known as the Iceman, was known for his incredibly calm demeanor on court. Meanwhile, Johnny Mac was the opposite. A rock star, one could say. He loved playing in rowdy environments. Therefore, it makes a lot of sense that Borg won at Wimbledon, where there's such a big tennis tradition and respect for the players, while McEnroe won in New York, where the crowd has always been loud and messy. In fact, Borg's career numbers speak for themselves. He never won the US Open, as he never felt quite comfortable in that environment. In the remainder of the 1980 season, Borg and McEnroe played 2 more matches, the Stockholm Open final in the place where they had met for the first time, and a round-robin match at the Masters, which to be precise, was in January 1981. The winner of those 2 matches was the same, and it was the Swede. He won the Stockholm Open for the first time in his career, beating McEnroe by 6-3, 6-4, and then beat him again in New York in a tighter match by 6-4, 6-7, 7-6. 1981 would be the last season these 2 legends played against each other in an official match. Throughout that season, they played 3 times in 3 different finals. The first one was in Milan, at the WCT event final in March. McEnroe won in straight sets by 7-6, 6-4. Later on, the pair would repeat the 2 Grand Slam finals they played the previous year. First in July, they played for the Wimbledon title in London. Borg was coming into the match having won the last 5 editions of the tournament, with a 41-match streak in Wimbledon's grass. Therefore, not considering him the favorite would have been a mistake. However, it had to be McEnroe, the one to end that dominance. In a 4-set match, he beat the Iceman by 4-6, 7-6, 7-6, 6-4 to win his maiden Wimbledon title and end Borg's reign at the All England's grass courts. Finally, chapter number 14 of the rivalry, which would eventually be the last one, happened at that year's US Open final in September. Borg was going for his first US Open, while McEnroe was going for his 3rd straight title in New York. It happened to be a 4-setter again, of which McEnroe emerged victorious, winning 4, 6, 6-2, 6-4, 6-3, and impeding Borg, adding a new trophy to his tally. Even though Borg wouldn't retire until 1983, the pair never ever played an official match again. Their head-to-head finished tied in 7-match wins all, which is a clue of how even their rivalry was throughout the 3 years that they competed against each other. Apart from the 14 official matches, they played a further 8 unofficial ones at different exhibition events and challenges. Believe it or not, they won 4 of those each. So, even if you take into account non-official matches, their head-to-head remains tied. That, apart from all the drama, contrast in styles, and great tennis, is one of the reasons why this is considered one of the best rivalries tennis has ever seen. Also, it is no coincidence that many years later, these 2 were selected to captain Team Europe and Team World at the Laver Cup. It can be understood as a way of extending their rivalry from another position. If you enjoyed today's video, don't hesitate to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so as not to miss any of the future uploads. Stay tuned for more.